Oh, well, I'd like to, it's really important we did the karakia. So I hope you all picked up the karakia for Milton. It's an important part of our process. I'm running the meeting this morning because John's not available to be here. He is our chair. It's great to see such a great group of people. Okay, old friends and some new people, so that's really good. Okay, you know where the toilets are out through there. Okay, when you're in an emergency, just go to the car park. Hopefully we're not having an emergency. Okay, always a big issue. So enjoy your morning and what's going to have you actually not the whole, all of it actually, if you look up every now and again it comes through on the screen here. If you want to, Brian, do you want to, anything? No. You have got a PowerPoint. So, now we're very lucky this morning, particularly lucky to have John Sligo here from the Office of the Ombudsman, and that's somebody that probably you don't know anything about, but it's really relevant relation. Okay, folks.
Thank you very much. Now, I'll try and get this to the right height. I always get these things wrong, so if nobody can hear me, please let me know. Kia ora everybody, my name is Brian Stanning, and I am here with my partner, colleague, sorry Carla Gavin, sitting back. My wife wouldn't like that statement. And we're here on behalf of the Office of the Ombudsman. So we work as part of the Disability Rights Team, which is a dedicated part. I will introduce the Ombudsman in a second. We've got a dashing photo of him. So our role is very much focused in the disability rights space. I come from over 20 years in the disability sector, and I'm currently a senior advisor in the team. I've been around all over the show, but hopefully we've got a few things we can share with you today. What I really want to focus on is the reasonable accommodations guide and the concept of reasonable accommodations, which I think is something that is underplayed in our community, and we'd really like to see more emphasis placed on. Now, thank you. Yay. Oh, I prefer if you did it first. I need a third hand. I really need a third hand. I've even got the wrong glasses on, which really tells you how organised I am this morning. If you wouldn't mind, please, thank you. Okay, so this is the lovely Judge Peter Bosher. Now, the role of the Ombudsman, Peter is the Chief Ombudsman for New Zealand at the moment, and the Ombudsman handles complaints and investigations around administrative issues with the public service in particular, senior agencies. There's a list of about 300 agencies the Ombudsman has oversight over, and the Ombudsman is a parliamentary office, so it is by appointment of the Speaker and separate to all ministries. So he has an oversight role. He also has a role in terms of contributing to protecting our rights, with things like protecting people in places of detention, and for my particular passion, a really active role under supporting the implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Okay, so the office, and Peter through the office, provides advice, guidance and training to public sector agencies. We do a lot of training, getting around the place, trying to open people's eyes a little bit about what their role in terms of engaging with the populace and the people is of New Zealand. Peter actually works outside New Zealand as well in terms of Asia and the Pacific, in terms of that parliamentary oversight role. Our office is also part of the international monitoring mechanism for the UN Convention. So there's 3 parties in that, which is the Disabled Persons Coalition, the Human Rights Commission and the Ombudsman's Office. And they are the critic and conscience when it comes to how New Zealand's doing in terms of the UN Convention. Because as we all know, it's one thing to sign up to a convention, and it's another thing to actually go through the process of implementing it. So that brings us on to the reason that I'm actually here, which is the shiny book, which I might just pop down here if that's all right. Thank you. Lovely spokesmodel to the left. Thank you very much. Just fuck off with this. Thank you. So the concept of reasonable accommodations. So Effectively, under the UN Convention, disabled people have the right to a reasonable accommodation, which in the very wordy way that it says up there, are necessary and appropriate modifications and adjustments, not imposing a disproportionate or undue burden to ensure, yes, it's a long-winded way of saying, effectively, we have the right to access reasonable ways of making life easier for us when we're dealing with public agencies, when we're dealing with businesses, and we're dealing with basically the universe. Making appropriate changes to ensure a disabled person has equal opportunities and rights. That word reasonable is one we'll come back to because it's kind of a bit of a shocky one. What is reasonable? And reasonable, the term reasonable accommodation often causes confusion, but it's the way the United Nations has chosen to describe basically these changes. Needed to support disabled people to live their lives on an equal basis. So it's broad and it encompasses many different changes that could be made in terms of improving access for disabled people. Please forgive me as I keep referring back to my notes because my brain gets scrambled when I get up here and I'll just start ranting, and then my colleague will have to throw something from the back and nobody wants to see that. So, you may or may not be familiar with the idea of universal design. The idea that if we lived in a world that was universally designed for access, basically the effect of a lot of people's disabilities would be mitigated. For my own situation in terms of being in a wheelchair, if it was a perfectly flat universe, I probably wouldn't have much in the way of a disability. It'd be kind of a boring universe, but it'd be a very flat universe. And that's the sort of concept that when we're designing things and starting off from first principles, we should be designing to include access for as many people as possible, including in terms of print, in terms of access to New Zealand Sign, in terms of the various ways in which we all access and interact with the world. But what do we mean by reasonable? And that's the hard part. It's not always agreed on, because effectively, what's reasonable to one person is not reasonable to another. So it should always be a dialogue. We'll come back to that as well. Everyone should bear in mind, however, when they're doing anything, and particularly from a public sector point of view, that the need to provide reasonable accommodation in all actions, services and decision making, including individual requests for reasonable accommodations, should be considered constructively and careful thought given to any modifications. And that careful thought and constructivity has to come from both sides, of course. I would love to demand that a lift be placed in every building that has ever been built, but it probably wouldn't pass the reasonable accommodation test. However, having essential services on a ground floor or somewhere I can access them is reasonable, for example. And obviously there's all sorts of barriers. All of us interact with the world in different ways. All of us come across barriers in different ways, be they information and communication barriers, be they architectural and physical barriers. I've had some wonderful run-ins with architects. I was telling somebody a little bit earlier, sometimes what an architect thinks is aesthetically pleasing seems to effectively be a barrier on purpose, which I'm sure many of us have come across barriers that don't seem to make any sense at all, except they were probably pretty, which is lovely, not very helpful. It can also include attitudinal barriers. People making an assumption about what we can and can't do without talking to us first, without consulting. The old source, nothing about us without us, but it gets ignored. If somebody actually comes and talks to a person and has a discussion and a dialogue with somebody about what their needs are and what they don't make, we're trying to get people not to make assumptions about what people need, but to actually ask and to actually interact with people and talk to us. Scary thought, I know. Technology barriers. A lot of the technology that's coming out right now, for a lot of people, it makes huge difference, huge positivity. For other people, it's a new barrier that we've taken away a way that they were able to interact with the world, and we put it in place something that is not as useful. So that needs to be taken into account as well. And then we've got systemic barriers, and I think systemic barriers is probably the biggest problem in terms of the public service, for example. No, that's our policy and that's how we do it. No, we only communicate by written letter. Really helpful if you're visually impaired or have a print disability or blind. So it's around making sure that those policies and the organisations understand that those policies need to take into account the rights of people to interact with those services. Under the Human Rights Act, it is unlawful to discriminate against a person on grounds of disability in relation to employment, provision of goods or services, access to public places, and facilities in other specified situations. Generally, the rule of thumb is if it's reasonable for an organisation to take steps to accommodate our needs, they should be doing so. Okay? Again, we're back to reasonable, but hey. And I think I would encourage anyone who's considering a reasonable accommodation request, and I'm really talking to, in this part, about people who are providing those spaces or those services, to not think about reasonableness first. Really, only think about reasonableness when we're talking about specific solutions. We should be focusing on the person and the access need that's actually there, and how we meet that need, rather than thinking, is that reasonable? Is that expensive? We should be thinking, how are we going to do it? Let's get to the solution first, then think about it. And again, that should be a constructive dialogue. It shouldn't be a matter of, I think this person will like a ramp. Well, maybe not. You know, maybe that's not the most appropriate way to deal with it. We need to think about, whenever we're dealing with these sorts of accommodations, is it going to work? That's the first thing. And that's where I think going back in terms of talking to the person is really important. Because if we make assumptions about what we're going to put in place without consulting with people, and consulting widely, because we've all got very different needs, right? We also have to, sometimes as service users, think about whether it's practical for the modification that we'd like to see to be put in place, whether it's something that can actually be done. If you're dealing with a 100-year-old building, it may not be appropriate to make huge changes, but we could change the way the service is delivered. In that way. Obviously, cost is a thing. We know that cost is a thing. Every time I go to buy a bottle of milk, I realise cost is a thing at the moment because it's got a different price. But I think that providers are dealing with the same thing, and agencies are dealing with the same thing. So cost is important, but it shouldn't be the be-all and end-all. It shouldn't be straight away, that's going to cost us $3, we're not going to do that. We need to, it needs to be reasonable. And whether there's resources available. There might be a great piece of kit, but it's only in Scandinavia. So we need to sort of, take that into account as well. So if you've been through this process and you're having a conversation with a provider and you don't feel like your needs have been met, for a great one as an example of print letters. I think that's a really big one for a lot of people. Or email-only communication for people for whom dealing with email is not useful at all. What do we do? What's the first thing we need to think about? Well, the first thing is trying to explore alternative ways of doing it. Trying to think, is there another way we could do this that we could suggest in opening that dialogue? I'm not necessarily saying that all that burden sits on us as disabled people. It needs to be a constructive dialogue on both sides. Is there another way we could be doing this that's easier? I've got a few examples that are down here. I should have moved off a slide about 3 ago, I apologise. Yeah, if you can, thanks. I'm not a multitasker, can you tell? Yeah, we've done that one as well, thank you. Yeah, I'll come to this one in a second. Did I skip right past that? I did skip right past that. I told you I'm no good with paper. So, there are some great examples of ways that have been done for that. We talk about, there was an example we had of a blind user who who loves to swim, wanted to access the pool, and wanted a dedicated lane set off the side for them for the whole day, just in case they wanted to come in. The reality is that's probably not going to happen in a public swimming pool, but what could happen and what did happen was a process put in place where there were various times when that lane could be made available free, so long as there was time, warning in advance, and there were arrangements. Both sides had to be a bit flexible. What we've done, and what I think rather than my rambling speech you might find more useful down the road, is this very pretty document. So this document's been developed in cooperation with, and basically largely by, the DPO Collective, the Human Rights Commission, and the Ombudsman's Office. And we have got copies up on our website. Now you'll see up there we have got copies in easy read, available, accessible Word, large print, New Zealand sign, Te Reo Māori, audio, and we can produce braille copies on request. So it's a really useful resource, and it does a great job of spelling things out and where to go and how to do. It's all up on our website. I think if you Google the word ombudsman, and if you're like me, the first couple of times I did it, you spell it wrong 3 times, because it's a heck of a word. You'll get to there. Failing that, our contact details will be on the end of this presentation as well, so please feel free to reach out. So the Ombudsman can investigate complaints around reasonable accommodation when it comes to the administrative process of government, right? So if you're dealing with an agency, if you're dealing with a ministry, and you've got reasonable accommodation requests that aren't being honoured, the office and our team can assist with that. There are also a number of other agencies that can assist. The Human Rights Commission are a big one in terms of reasonable accommodation resources and requests, and it's something they do very, very well. So I would encourage you to link in with them. But it's really important that you go through the process of trying to resolve it first yourself. That can feel really painful sometimes, but it's just important for us to be able to point to the work that you've done. Say, hey look, this person's tried really hard here. They've been really open and really honest with you, and they're trying to be constructive and you're choosing not to be. That's when what we call the weight of Peter can drop from the sky. And Peter's powers, he can't direct anybody, but he can advise. And I heard somebody say in a public forum last week, so I feel safe to say it here, you'd be an interesting person to not pay attention when the Ombudsman gives you advice. And an interesting agency, let's put it that way. So, basically, if I leave you with nothing else, if you can flick on, just because I'm not quite sure what's on the next slide, so it's just yeah, we've done that one. Cool. And yeah, so these are our contact details. We're going to hang around for the rest of the day anyway, lingering around the fringes, so please feel free to come and have a chat with myself or Carla if there are any questions. If there's anything I've glossed over and anything you don't necessarily want to jump up with now, then please feel free. Those are our details. And like I say, we do have a dedicated team, and the Ombudsman's office has quite a significant team these days. So thank you for that. I apologise if it was a bit rambling. It's the way I seem to speak these days. Don't know why it is. But I have got a bit of an opportunity if anybody wants to ask any questions while I'm sitting here hogging the microphone. Otherwise, please feel free to come up and just grab me, preferably not physically, after this.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity for you to ask Brian some questions.
I don't need a microphone.
Yeah, we do today because
Oh.
of, some people can't
It's a
hear.
barrier. My accent might be a barrier. Thank you, Jill. My question is, I appreciate a comment around people with disabilities who aren't recognised as such officially, and referring to people with MS and epileptics. They are recognised as sorry, there's a barrier there. I was interrupted. I had a second thought into my brain and I'm totally confused. People with epilepsy and MS have a medical condition. So under the official terminology, they're not entitled to help with regard to disabilities until at some point in time it becomes a bit obvious. I mean, some people with MS are in motorised wheelchairs, so there's a point in time when they become recognised as having disabilities, but there are significant barriers involved, and I've personal experience of epileptics who have just been spun around the health services and deserved support for secondary disabilities. Have you any comment on the ones that are falling through the floorboards like that, who have disabilities but aren't recognised as such officially?
I have to be a little bit careful in terms of the terminology I use. However, the UN Convention itself explicitly refers to people with long-term health conditions as being covered by the Disability Convention. The right to reasonable accommodation applies to everybody. It doesn't necessarily require the label of disability in terms of this space. I think where we cross over into funding support and those sorts of things, which is where a lot of the challenges sit for people with long-term health conditions, and I completely understand as much as I can, having not gone through that myself. That's where the challenges come. That's where organisations like the Health and Disability Commission and the Human Rights Commission have a more active role to play, because as health consumers, people still have the same set of rights, and so the Human Rights Commission and the Health Disability Commission are probably the best avenues in terms of that. But as I say, the right to reasonable accommodation is applicable to all New Zealanders. It's applicable to elderly New Zealanders. It's applicable to anybody who's living with a barrier. It's about barriers more than a definition.
Yeah, I agree with you, but that's coming from the consumers. At the consumer end all the time, there must be thousands of consumers having the same battle with the system. So seeing as you're part of the system at a higher level, do you think it would be a reasonable suggestion that you engage with Ministry for Health, for example, to and have those things included rather than be a barrier themselves. Rather than having us fighting individual battles on the ground. Yeah?
Understand. So the most recent observations from the UN committee that oversees our performance in Geneva last year did actually raise as a concern the way in which we're addressing long-term health conditions that aren't covered by the label of disability within New Zealand. So that has been raised with the government by the United Nations and is definitely on the radar for New Zealand providers and for New Zealand agencies. And obviously I've got my suit on today, so I have to answer in a diplomatic way. But I do think that it's something that pressure is being brought to bear. Whether that pressure is effective or not is up to the government of the day and the way in which the policy is implemented. But I can assure you it is something that is completely on the radar, and we as a team are very much aware of as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Taina from TCC. Milton, thank you for the beautiful karakia this morning, and Wendy, thank you for the beautiful welcome. Brian, I have a question in terms of reasonable accommodations and what it can apply to. So obviously it's going to apply to things like services we need and public infrastructure. But how about things like Andrew's question was awesome there about the Ministry of Health. How about the Ministry of Education? Our rights as parents to be able to access our children's activities, their assemblies. I know for myself, my son's just started at Tauranga Boys College. 5 events so far this year from 6 have been inaccessible. So not being able to see my son get his awards or do his stage show, things like that. You know, you don't want to be a rampaging bull, but what are our rights there?
I think, and obviously it's around that reasonableness test. I would genuinely encourage you, that's the sort of thing you can look into making a complaint around, the sort of thing you can look into reaching out for advice on, and because that is an interaction with the ministry. It does matter, obviously there will be costs involved and negotiations. Obviously you'll be having conversations with the school, I have no doubt, but that is the sort of thing where there is no harm in making contact. If it's something that we think is better dealt with through another pathway, or is a way that you haven't explored, then we can help you with that, or it may be something that needs to be moved forward. So there's very much a sort of thing that falls under the remit.
Awesome, thank you.
Great questions, by the way. I love being put on the spot. Thank you. I really genuinely do, because it does point out where we're at with some things. Okay.
Good morning. We, as volunteering services here at Social Link, we regularly get people who make inquiries about volunteering for our various partner organisations. I do have one question that perhaps you could advise on. We do have a potential volunteer who's called us quite often in regard to volunteering, but she's finding that a lot of the partner organisations that she inquires with, because she's partially legally blind, she feels that that's a barrier to her getting, or even let alone maintaining any positions. Do you have any advice around that I could give her?
It's difficult to sort of give advice about specific situations. Again, I think it's around, a lot of things are around awareness raising and around where the rubber meets the road in terms of cost, but also around what people may perceive her barriers in terms of participating in volunteering are, that may not be the case. So that may be an advocacy situation in terms of sitting down and having a conversation. I'm really happy to take this one offline actually, because I've got a few things I'd like to say when I'm not on a microphone, if that's all right. Yeah.
Oh, go on.
I like my job, thanks.
Okay, it was really interesting. And thanks to Carla too to be there to support. Okie doke, Helen and Meg.
Good morning. My first question I'm going to ask is, can everybody hear me? Because I'm actually deaf, so I can't hear how well I'm projecting my voice. Can you hear me at the back?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. I just channeled that single mum yelling at her kids' thoughts, you know. Now, does anybody here have a problem with dogs?
No. Yep.
Okay, Meg, come. Meg, come. Good girl, good girl. Okay, if you would like Meg to come and say hello to you, she would love to come and say hello to you. So just click your fingers and we'll call her. She's used to wandering around when I do talks. She's very social, very social. Now, up there you have, this is Abby. Abby was my first hearing dog. And I had Abby from 2013 to 2021. Unfortunately, I lost Abby in January 2021, and it was a heartbreaking experience to go through. Abby is a King Charles Cavalier crossed with a Shih Tzu, and unlike Meg, who is a Cavoodle, which is a King Charles crossed with a Poodle, nicknamed Cavoodle, I never quite figured out an abbreviation that Abby was she a Shih Tzu-doodle, a Shits. So I just used to give the whole thing. As we said before, my name is Helen Ware. My journey has been a little bit mixed, and I'll explain that a little bit. I'm the elder twin, and for story, you go, no you go, no you go, and I got shut down. So I became the elder twin. And my mother felt that I was a lazy baby. I felt as a nurse she felt there was an issue, but the doctor decided that I was a lazy baby. Waiheke, fast forward, Waiheke Island, I'm 6 years of age, playing on a piece of playground equipment that would never happen in today's world because it has a concrete base. Remember those? We remember those. Character building stuff. And anyway, I fell at the back of my head. A week later, still wasn't hearing properly, so I went and had my hearing tested. Lo and behold, at the age 6, I got a hearing aid. Not impressed. Now, life continued on from there until I was at the age of 12, when I had a significant drop in my hearing. At this stage, my right ear was my good ear, my left ear was my bad ear, and I wore my hearing aid in my right ear. So they decided that they would do some tests to find out why I was hearing impaired, because nobody actually knew why. So they put me in hospital for a week on bed rest, and that included a bedpan. What 12-year-old girl wants the indignity, well, nobody wants the indignity of a bedpan, but at 12 it was just, that was my biggest takeaway from hospital. I'm never ever going to be in that situation again where I need to use a bedpan. So far I'm winning. And so when I came out of hospital, a little bit of issues with my hearing aid, tested again, lost the ability to make out words in my right ear, nothing. So now I only have one ear working. This ear gave me about 35% unaided. With a hearing aid, I had 70%. So I'm hearing less than half of what you hear. Okay? So I got very good at lip reading. Very good at lip reading. Fast forward 2018, moved to Katikati from Auckland. Wanted to be close to my parents, and I wanted my son to be able to follow to school. And then 2021 was a bit of a busy year for me. I lost Abby, got Meg, and got made redundant and went deaf. Sitting on the couch talking to my daughter one night, lost, gone. So tests, a few other things happened, and it didn't seem like it was coming back. So now I'm totally deaf. Now the interesting thing is, when I had that drop back when I was age 12, I thought I would learn sign language. I wanted to learn sign language. It's a New Zealand language, I wanted to learn it. And my specialist at the time said no, I wasn't allowed to learn it. Because his concern was that if I went deaf, I would stop talking. Silly man. Silly man. I'm a woman. I have a set number of words to get through every day. So, needless to say, I know a little bit of sign language now, but not much. So that's unfortunately on me. Now, while after going deaf, and you can imagine going deaf, I went deaf when we were all wearing masks. Really hard to live with people when you're wearing a mask. Then, in August 2022, I was the lucky recipient of a cochlear implant. Now, everyone thinks that when they turn the cochlear implant, hey presto, you're good to go. No, you're not. It's noise, it's static. So here I am a year down the track, and at the moment on single words, I have 46% word recognition on single words. Give me a sentence, you might as well talk gibberish. I've reached a situation, we've reached a bit of a plateau with my journey, and that I now have severe tinnitus and hyperacusis. Hyperacusis means sound heard. So I've sort of stalled a wee bit of my progress, and my brain can't be trained to identify a sound it doesn't hear. So that's where we're at now. So please bear with me. Now if at the end you have a question, I will ask you to stand up if possible, and Helen, my good friend Helen, is going to assist me. It may be that she will repeat to me what you've said so I can read her lips. Okay, so next one. What is a disability assist dog? As you can see, the Dog Control Act 1996 and the Human Rights Act 1993 correlate, and basically it comes down to 8 organisations in New Zealand are able to authorise or to certify a dog as a disability assist dog. It is important. There has been a misconception for a long time that we call them assistance dogs, service dogs, working dogs. This has created a problem because we now have a disability assist dog that is called assistance dog. If someone puts a sign up and says, no dogs except guide dogs, well, that means they've denied me access with my hearing dog. So there needs to be a little bit of education out there around what the correct terminology is. These dogs are trained specifically to alert their recipients to an incident or a sound or an event unique to that recipient. Okay? They are also taught, not that you would think it looking at my dog right now, but they are also taught how to behave in public. In other words, she's not allowed to eat human food. Because it tastes, the smell, I don't know what that tastes like. It's interesting, but I'm not going to do that in. If I know what it tastes like, yum yum, I'm going to be for it. So there's that scenario. Now, the purpose of these dogs is to help their recipients, or to assist their recipients, by removing barriers that prohibit or hinder them in their ability to actually complete fully to the best of their abilities in society. Okay, next one. The 8 organisations that are able to certify a disability assist dog are assistance dogs with the blue coat. These are for any recipient living with a disability, but they specialise in diabetes, autism and Down syndrome. clearly identified by a blue coat. Now often they wear a harness, which is a little bit different, but it's still that blue. The next one down the bottom is hearing dogs, as you can see. You can see Abby in the front, and that little white dog whisk at the back is why our codes say hearing dogs for deaf people, not hearing dogs for deaf people and hearing impaired people, because otherwise dogs like Whisk and even probably me would instead of wearing a coat, they'd be wearing a cape. You know, so we abbreviate it. Now, the job of a hearing dog, and incidentally that's Meg in the front, and just behind her is Maisie, her half-sister, who lives in Papamoa. They are trained to alert the recipients to sounds in the home they wouldn't hear. Doorbell, phone, smoke detector, timer, baby monitor. The other one they do, which for me was important, was if my kids were yelling at me, I couldn't hear them. So they would call Abby, as it was then, call Abby to them and tell her to find Mum. She would come to me, alert, I would follow. And on the other one, next lot are canine medical detection and canine search medical. Now these guys appeared on Dog Wrestlers UK last week, I think it was. Wasn't the New Zealand one, it was the UK version. Canine medical detection is, you'll see one of them a little bit further on. Basically, if you have a medical disability, they are trained to alert you in the event, normally a chemical or heart rate or something like those changes, they will alert you, which gives you a chance to get somewhere safe. Canine search rescue is more involved with training centres, sniffing out cancers and things like that. Then we have the green coat mobility. The name pretty much says it all. Their mobility, anyone with a disability can get a mobility dog. They're geared more towards those with mobility issues. In other words, if you're in a wheelchair, they can take your socks off, they can open and close doors for you, they can get something out of the fridge for you. Epilepsy, people down the bottom there, they smell the chemical change in your body when there's an onset of an epileptic seizure. So they will alert and the recipient has a chance to get somewhere safe. And the last two are partners, who again are any disability. They focus on autism, neurological and psychiatric conditions. And of course the one down the bottom that everybody knows is the guide dog, not the blind dog, the guide dog. And what do these dogs do? How do they help? They enhance self-confidence and self-esteem, companionship, greater independence, increased security, reduce stress, social interaction, new interest and responsibilities, moderate and regular exercise. The gain to having a disability assist dog are obvious and often intangible or immeasurable. They enable the recipient to participate fully in society and fully in activities, events, outings, but otherwise they would not be able to do so. So they're great for removing that barrier. And often, sometimes the barrier is our own internal barrier and a lot of self-confidence, and having a disability assist dog gives you that confidence. Sometimes, well in my case, a little bit too much. When I got Abby, I decided that, hey, I'm feeling really confident now I've got my dog. I'm going to go to university and be a mature student. Working part-time and being a single mum with 2 kids wasn't enough. Let's just add some more. So it was mind-bending fun time. I don't think my brain hurt quite a bit because you've got to remember, it's been a lot of years since I've been at school. So university was quite an eye-opening experience. I was probably one of the most well-known students of the Albany Massey campus. And although I like to think I'm a warm and engaging person, it actually had nothing to do with me. And it had everything to do with my dog. People would ask to cuddle her, they would at her. I used to throw the ball for her. Sometimes they'd want to throw the ball with her. They wanted treats for her. So I like to think that I had some popularity, but I'm probably just fooling myself. So but that's the confidence and the interaction that having a service and disability assist dog can have for you. Next one. Okay. Public access. Now, just you probably don't know. This is actually a hearing dog down in Plymouth. Ruby, she's the only hearing dog that is actually trained to give demonstrations. We do not give demonstrations with our dogs because their place of business is the home. Okay? So, okay, unfortunately, while disability assist dogs remove barriers because of misunderstanding and lack of knowledge in other people, they create a barrier. I've been refused service in cafes, I've been ordered out of restaurants, I've been physically intimidated at events, all because I have a very intimidating dog with me. Now, often we do self-advocate, and sometimes we can get in, and when it comes to public access, there's two pieces of legislation that give us the right, okay? Any public place. And it is a legal act of discrimination if the person relying on disability assist dog. Let me tell you, a lot of times the initial refusal is lack of education, lack of knowledge. Let's face it, there's 55 hearing dogs in New Zealand, there's 5 million people. Can't expect you all to have heard of us. It'd be nice if you did, but you can't expect us all to have heard of us. So everybody knows about guide dogs, not everybody knows about all the other service dogs. It's just assist dogs. Now, while that may seem extremely clear, there is a multi-organisational misunderstanding as to what the legislation applies to, how it is policed or enforced, and who enforces it. The only place that a sheep can legally be denied access is a private residence. Okay? Next one. These animals here, at the top there you've got Molly. Molly belongs to Colina. They went on a Blue Bridge ferry. Gentlemen, staff member decided that they shouldn't have Molly wearing her coat on the ferry. Got to a raging confrontation with a lot of public around watching. Colina's in tears. She had to take her hearing aids out to prove that she was hearing impaired. And they were finally able to get on the ferry because there was a phone call from the Hearing Dogs New Zealand CEO because of one staff member. Down the bottom we have Eugene and Echo. This is the dog. Echo is a medical detect. Eugene was denied student accommodation. She had over 300 applications to find accommodation because she had a student dog. She was on a bus, walking transport bus. The bus driver refused to carry her. She'd been herself aware, got on the bus, started recording. The bus driver stopped the bus, called the police and told the police, and I quote, "There is a big scary dog on the bus." The police arrived. The police escorted Eugene and Echo off the bus. To their credit, they did take her home in the police car. Bottom line is, she should never have been escorted off the bus. The police did not even know the correct legislation. In the middle is Sally and Sienna. Sally is sight challenged, so she uses taxis and Ubers. She's lost count of the number of times that a taxi or an Uber has approached her, seen the dog and driven off. And she has also been asked more than several times, could the dog please travel on the boot? At the top there we have Linda and Maisie. Maisie and Linda were screamed at a supermarket to leave the premises. And down the bottom we have Noah and Nico. Nico is a assistance dog. The family was dining at McDonald's, had ordered, paid, sitting down dining, minding their own business, and they were told to leave. halfway through their meal. So it happens. It happens a lot. Now when these experiences happen, you can self-advocate and maybe you can get in. But sometimes the vibe is not good. And do you really want to eat or drink somewhere where they have been made you feel unwelcome, uncomfortable, and do you really want to give them your money? So you might retreat and go somewhere else. Meanwhile, it is, and I don't mean to tell you people here what it's like to experience discrimination. I am sure all of us here have experienced it in many different forms. It is dehumanising, it is embarrassing, it is frustrating. All you are asking to do is to do the exact same thing that that person walking next to you has the right to do. You are not asking for anything special. You are asking for your right as a human to go into a cafe and get a cup of coffee. Why does it become a massive exercise? So this is the Human Rights Commission. Now, often this is your only option. There is some of the organisations do support their recipients when they have discrimination happen to them. The complaint only works if the other party engages. If the other party does not engage, nothing happens. Okay? And the other party can engage and drag it out for years. They do mediation, they do education, they say. Now the outcome I got in my instances was an extremely weak letter of apology that actually was very carefully worded to take no responsibility. And they had an undertaking to train their staff, but nobody checks that they do. And how do they train their staff? Because there was no organisation, there was nobody that does that training. So how does it work? And it's part of all that misinformation and misunderstanding. Colleen and Molly, when they had the Blue Ridge and motel instances, they wrote to the Ministry of Disabled People. We came back very clearly with the individual district and city councils are responsible for enforcement and can be approached. We are creating a dialogue with them because I can tell you quite categorically there is no council office in New Zealand that wants to know. Okay? They either refuse, say it's not my job, they write it down on one of those little scrap pieces of paper so you know where that's going the minute you walk out the door. Or the best one we've had yet was me, and they didn't know what to do, so they went and got the dog control officer who came and told me to my face, well, of course you can't take your disability assist dog into the cafe, it's against the law. So now we're educating businesses, we're educating employers, we're educating councils, we're educating dog control officers, and it gets raining. So, what happens is Roger, who is another hearing dog recipient, and myself volunteer as disability assist dog advocates. Our aim, as well as being guest speakers for hearing dogs for the deaf, our aim is to record and collect and record data so that we can, for example, we know of 40 incidents last year in Auckland alone where disability assist dogs will refuse public transport. When you get on the bus drove off without them. So it's real, it happens. Now we work to support the recipient through the process, and we're collecting the data because we want to go to these organisations, we want to go to the trainers, government departments, we want to say, hey, this is not on. Why is it that people who are legally entitled to do what they're doing are being discriminated against? And it is a long way to go. And just very quickly on hearing dogs. Hearing dogs, I'll speak about them because I know a little bit more about them than any of the others. Funny that, eh? Meg, maybe here, please. For many who experience hearing loss, isolation. Isolation. isolation, the lack of engagement lead to depression and other health issues. In fact, and those health issues also become cognitive issues. There's a recent study by John Hopkins where they found that hearing loss is a contributing factor to dementia risk. So they are now trying to advocate that in our golden years, our hearing is made a priority, as all of our health should be, but our hearing as well. Okay, how does a dog alert? These three main points for the dog. The dog alerts. I'd come to me, sound would happen. Meg would come up to me, she would put two front paws on my knee. I would say, "What is it?" And she would take me to the sound. The difference there is the smoke detector, because she can't take me to the ceiling. So she goes down flat. Okay? Now that can be doorbell, smoke detector, timer, baby monitor. I didn't have a hearing dog when we had Sarah, and Sarah let out one cry, my daughter, and I was about yay far away from the monitor, and my husband, who travelled a lot with his job, thankfully was home that night, and as I'm stepping towards the bed to join him in bed, as you do, he leaps and runs madly out of the room, which is not quite the response I was after. So I decided I'd better follow him and see what was happening. He ran into Sarah's room, ripped her out of the bassinet, flipped her over the side, back of the shoulder blades. She was blue. She let out one tiny cry, and I never heard it. And I was that far away from the monitor. So, I do save lives. I'm never lonely. When there with companionship, I'm never lonely. When I went deaf, communication and interactions were impossible. There was wearing a mask. So having Meg by my side was an incalculable difference, and she was, as I was able to adjust to my scary, scary, scary new world. So, how can you help? Educate yourself about the legal rights of disability assist dogs. Support the organisations who supply these dogs. Many of them rely on donations. They do not get government funding. Remember, if a disability assist dog is wearing their service coat, they are working. The exception, and I say this very clearly, the exception is hearing dogs, because their place of work is the home. Okay? So, if you spoke to the person holding the leads, yes, you can pat her. If they say yes, you can pat them. Otherwise, no. All the other service dogs, you do not engage them when they're in public, and most of us know that. Now, the big thing that you can do is to share what you've learned today with others, and please, please, speak up or stand in support of the person whenever you see discrimination happening. Even if you don't know the situation, if you don't know the legislation, if you can see that it's discrimination, if you can feel that it's discrimination, or something is just plain not right, come and stand alongside the person. Ask, is everything all right? Because I've got to tell you, if there's someone there to hold your hand, you feel valued. And at the end of the day, we all just want to be seen and to be valued. So, that's my talk for today. Are there any questions? Where would get it done? Over there.
How does she tell you that she wants to have the toilet when you're at an event?
Sorry?
She tell you she wants to go to the toilet when you're at the event.
She doesn't need to tell me because they toilet on command. It's a little bit like having a toddler. No, it's a little bit like having a toddler. always get them to go to the toilet. Yes. So yeah, that's how they do it. Yes. No, it's a fair question. I mean, can you imagine a blind person that they need their dogs, guide dogs, for example, are taught to toilet in a specific place on the owner's section. Now, then how will we pick it up because the blind person doesn't want to be going around there with a big bag of and so they are, that's what I mean about the specific training. Yeah, on command. Something we wish we could have done with our toddlers. Anything else? Yeah. No matter how often you're asked, do you need to go to the toilet? They go, no mummy. And you're out, get out the other side. Mummy, I need to go to the toilet. So yes, any other questions? Okay, just quickly. I didn't mention in my talk, how I got here was I'm involved with Parents Court Bay of Plenty. I'm a volunteer, I'm the treasurer, I'm a committee leader, and I'm very involved with the publicity or the coffee mornings and everything we have. Now, whether you may or may not have seen it, there's a cochlear implant roadshow coming up next month on the 11th of November. Now, if you or anyone you know is interested about cochlear implants, this is a really cool free event to come through. It's a collective on the 11th of November. I have a couple of flyers here if anyone's interested. So please don't be shy. And thank you very much for your time.
Oh, Helen, that was so interesting. So much learning to do, and I know as people with disability, we are aware of all of the issues. And what an amazing little friend you've got there, Meg. So, yeah, so, yes, I'm sure you all agree it was a very entertaining and interesting session. It was lots of training and learning in as well. Now, right, for about 15 minutes we've got morning tea, so, yeah, enjoy. Okay, Eve Small's now going to share her story. He and I have known each other for a very long time, haven't we? We're watching each other get old together, it's a bit of a worry. Okay, right, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's going to share, and I know you'll all join in and rock with him. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. As Wendy said, actually I recognize people recognize me in this room. We know one another, some of them maybe many years, but maybe I know you, you know me, but you don't know me. Yeah. So I will start my presentation about my story. Good morning, Kira Koto, 早上好. So that's English, Malay, and Chinese in greeting. Yeah, when Joe asked me, would you like to sit down? Actually, what I wrote is, today I'm standing here to tell my story. It is my story, but it is not only my story. It is a story belonging to myself, a polio survivor. It is a story also belongs to all polio survivors. A couple of days ago, 24th October, it was the World Polio Day. Some of the towns, cities had lights on in color purple on the town towers or streets to remember the day. Yes, we are still here. I think the people think we all gone, but yes, we are still here. This story is also dedicated to all mothers and fathers who had a child who contracted polio through the polio pandemic all over the world in the past. Frida Kahlo, world-renowned artist who overcame polio. Frida Kahlo is one of the most important female artists of the 20th century. Today, I stand here and wearing a Chinese traditional dress with the imagery of Frida all over this dress. I'm feeling that I'm carrying her passion and pass on. So, my story is, the title is Life is a Piece of Art. Your little girl will not walk again for the rest of her life. It was in the winter of 1969, extremely cold, when the medical diagnosis was delivered to my father and mother. It was a bombshell news. The girl was me, the firstborn child after my mother's 3 miscarriages. I was 1 year and 6 months old, started walking and tried to run around. A week ago, I had a high fever of 40. After that, I couldn't walk, not even stand. My parents stayed at the specialist, no idea. Not walking anymore, the rest of her life. The words stunned my parents. Your girl had contracted polio. Her case was severe, and now she is paralyzed. The specialist continued. Polio paralysis. Again, the words they hadn't heard in their lives. You have to carry your daughter to the toilet every day, put it this way. That was a life sentence to me and my parents. My mother had a few days cry and couldn't get over her sadness and helplessness. One day a neighbor came over. Look, your girl is so beautiful, dark and shining eyes. Listen, she might be the one will bring you a fascinating life journey. She talked loud to my mother. The neighbor enlightened my mother, like the lights in the dark tunnel. Chinese characters, many of them are same sounding but different meaning and writing. My name, Yi, given on my birth, is this E. That's the E I given in my life when I was born. The meaning, perseverance, insistence, determination, such strong meanings. After my paralysis, my parents changed my name. It's still called E, but it's another writing. And it means art, ability, skill, such indulgent, gorgeous, so beautiful meanings. After many medical treatments, I started walking with critical polio walking looking. They thought, my parents, they thought I was cute. Kids in the street usually laugh at me. My father would smile with a sense of humor. She does look like a penguin, doesn't she? Right, a polio penguin. Thank you, Dad. My parents adored me like a piece of art, but life is the reality. What can we do with our girl? My parents ask themselves every day. My mother had a vision for me. When I was 10 years old, China started the transformation of economy. My mother saw the opportunity for my future through education. Teaching Yi to learn English, my mother told my father, I can see English as a language will be useful when the international trade will carry out between the world and China. Are you sure? I don't know English at all. I learned Russian in 1950s in the university, not English, my father said. I can teach you Russian. My father tried to convince. No Russian. Must English. You are smart. Learn English yourself, then teach E. Negotiation wasn't in my mother's dictionary. Poor my father taught himself, then taught me. When I was 19, I passed the exam to the university. My mother changed her mind and chosen accounting for me. It was surprising, and my father and I were shocked. My father and I struck for 2 days and hardly talked to her for 2 weeks. If we talked to her, my father and I will question her. My father will question, you asked me to learn English, then teach E. Now you ask her to give up. I don't like numbers. I like language. Accounting doesn't make any sense. My mother, she's so determined. Your polio legs, it will be better for you to sit, to do the work. Accountant is the one. Well, my mother won. I told my mother, I will be an accountant to my 40s. Then I will go for the life of my choice. However, my mother had a smile on her face. The year when I turned 36, 4 years early than I was planning at 40, I left my 13 years accountant job to go overseas. New Zealand was my destination. Bye, Mom. I have achieved your passion and your goals. Now I'm going to follow my dream. I traveled by myself and started my life on another side of the world. All began from a mother's vision for her disabled daughter, language too, and practical skill, which is English and accounting. They are the two wings that enable me to follow my dreams. When I was pregnant with my daughter, after 12 weeks, we had the first check-up. My husband and I had been told that something was not right, but they couldn't tell. My husband asked, does the baby miss a finger or a toe? No, not at all. But she has an extremely small size of head. My husband and I were looking at a specialist seeking the answers. Well, the smaller size head might not have enough room for the brain to develop. Oh, the baby may be intellectually impaired. I look at my husband. Wow, that will be interesting. A disabled woman pregnant with a disabled child. I called my mother. Mom, The baby might have an intellectual developmental delay. Not sure what it means, but what are you feeling? My mother asked me. Well, forget the medical term. I'm excited for the life journey ahead. My mother laughed. Just like you brought the amazing life journey to me. Yeah, Mom, a disabled woman will bring up a disabled child. I just couldn't wait to meet this baby. I named my daughter Felicia, meaning happiness and good fortune. My mother gave her a Chinese name of Bao Zhu, means a precious pearl. My daughter now is a 16-year-old teenager, fun and beautiful. I'm sure her future will be filled with adventure like her mother, me. This is the story of 3 generations, my mother, me, and my daughter. We don't intend to become your inspiration, but we couldn't help thinking a double disabled world becomes a perfect world. Thank you.
Now we're going to ask Shelley Robinson, Dan Turner and John Cascook to come and talk about the benefits of being a disability confident organisation.
It's just Shelley Robinson and John Cascook because Dan is still on holiday. So, yeah, John, would you like to sit or stand? John's just a little bit dog nervous, that's all. So that's okay. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Right. Do I need the microphone?
Yeah, sure, you could just use the mic.
Do I need to sit? You do whatever you like. You can sit right. If you want. Okay.
Kia ora, koutou, katoa. My name is Shelley Robinson. Gee, that's loud. And I'm the founder of the Chrome Collective. And I just want to give you probably a little bit of background as to how we became a, thank you Jill, disability confident organisation. I have a daughter, Ruby, who's 21, and I found that I fought the system angrily all our lives with schooling and the actual meaning of inclusiveness. It came to a time where she was leaving school and I thought, what on earth am I going to do? So through a number of different things that happened, it turned out that I did a little bit of looking internationally at what was going on, and I decided to open up a cafe that welcomed people with disability to be employed. I didn't just want people with disability, I wanted people without disability. I wanted to create an inclusive environment, so that is what we did. It wasn't without its challenges. We are based in Katikati and we have quite a large disabled community in Katikati. So it was, I didn't know that at the time, but it became a bit of a meeting point and a bit of a social hub, and a lot of issues came up, and one of them was around financial independence. And these guys don't have a lot of money. A lot of them are on supported living benefits. So I was thinking, right, how can we create something so that these people can make money? So we started the Chrome Collective next door to the cafe. It was for people to create micro businesses. We sold their stuff on behalf and they got a commission and we took a small amount of money. After 5 years with the cafe, I was exhausted, and so we had to sell it. We moved the collective to another building, which we're just realising we need to move out of because it's on that floor and it's not as accessible as what it needs to be. But it's accessible. We do have a chairlift, but it's not very dignified. And we looked at ways where we could make, these guys could make, we could make more money, and so we now go to markets and we do really, really well. We sell a lot of stuff. People are really, really keen to support us. We all wear our Inclusion Matters t-shirts, and we just want to get out there and we want to educate other businesses, other people in the world around authentic inclusion, because everything I've listened to here today shows that a lot of it's just token gesture and a lot of people aren't really listening, and so that's a big part of why we do what we do and how we do it. And John is our Chrome crew captain. So we employ John to run the place, basically, eh? So John started with us volunteering, didn't you? Yeah. And it became very, very apparent that John was very, very clever. So we offered him some employment. And the reason John's here is that I want to ask John a few questions so he can maybe tell you what it's done for him in his life and how he feels. So yeah, how's your life changed in your words by having employment and being involved?
Well, when I first started working for Shelley, I basically was stuttering 24/7 because I have a speech impediment, no self-confidence, and really reliant on other people. But now that I'm fully paid, well paid, but yeah, just my stutter while I'm talking to Shelley, that's a lot less more over and over repeating my words, and I've got a task list, so I look at that in the morning and I'm like, that's what I'm doing today, rather than me going up and saying, Shelley, I'm bored, what can I do?
Yeah, so what's happened is, and you know, it's like everything, we learn as we go along, don't we? So John was coming to me every day, or Sharain over there trying to hide. What shall I do now, what shall I do now? So I said, right, and this is just a very small example of what whakaha are meant to be doing with organisations in New Zealand. They are meant to be educating them around inclusivity and how to employ people with disability deep within the organisation, culture change. So what we did is we then decided we'd write John a list. So he knows every day what he has to do. He's empowered to do it himself. He doesn't have to come and ask me and feel like a dick. Because you do, you feel like a dick when you have to come and ask me. And so he's got this list. So he's in charge now. So yeah. So we run a program called Kaigo, which is a food rescue organisation. Our guys get vocational training through that. We partner with Career Moves, who've been amazing, and they help us place people into paid employment, mainly in our area. We have about 30 or 40 people that engage with us on a weekly basis, come into our workspace, and they get basically vocational training. We make products for markets, and we go out and we spread the word, basically. And we're going to be spreading it a whole lot more next year. So if anyone is interested or wants to know more, you can talk to me, you can email us. We're all over Facebook. You can't miss us, thanks to Sharain. If you follow us, then all the contact details are there. And yeah, what else can I ask you, John? How does it make you feel being employed? Does it make you feel better about yourself?
Yeah, that's made me a completely different person than I was about 3.5 years ago. Yeah.
Part of the team. We're just a team now, aren't we?
Yeah.
All of us. Yeah. I don't know if I've missed anything else out. But yeah, disability confident. It'd be great if all organisations could take it on, basically. Yeah. Is there any questions anyone's got for John or myself?
Do you have anything to do with Workbridge?
We have done, yeah. We have employed people through Workbridge before at the cafe.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
So-
they're meant to be there to help people with disability. Because I used to like, I'm a life member, and I always think, wow.
So someone came to work for us for a little while in the cafe, and then he moved on to working at the supermarket in Kitty, and he's still there. I think it's really important too, like someone came along and said, oh, I've got a job for your daughter stacking shelves at the supermarket. Well, just because she's got a disability doesn't mean to say that she should stack shelves at the supermarket, because she's way more capable of a whole lot of different things. And I think it's about, we work with people individually and make sure that we identify their strengths, their areas that they can improve on or that they may want to improve on, and then we sort of, look at it from there.
Any other questions, folks?
Are you involved with the Connecticut High School?
Yes, yeah. So just recently, because they have an amazing new Senko there, well, she's been there about 18 months, she's come along, and so we'll be working with their people as they get to transition out of high school. Yeah.
You should.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.